Welcome to this episode of the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, and joining us today, we have Olympic champion, world champion, Commonwealth Games champion, and 200 breast extraordinaire, Zac Stubblety-Cook. Zac, how's it going, man?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me.
I was just reminiscing with you. It's been 2.5 years since I last spoke with you, and that was right after you had won your Olympic gold medal in Tokyo in the 200 breast. I can't believe it's been that long, but how have you been since then?
I've been pretty good. We had a pretty good year in the year after the Olympics. Your hair's a bit longer, but and I'm in a very different location. I remember we were just talking about at that point. So we were locked up coming home from the games. But yeah, the last 2.5 years have been an absolute whirlwind. But I've learnt a lot and raced a lot and enjoyed the last 2 years. But yeah.
Yeah, let's I'm gonna start with this past summer at the World Championships. Again, you talk about a whirlwind. In just over a year, you became Olympic champion, world champion, and Commonwealth Games champion, and world record holder in that 200 breast. That's a quadrifecta if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah.
And so going into 2023. Again, you have another World Championships, which obviously an effect of the pandemic and kind of unusual to have back-to-back World Championships like that. But going into the 2023 season, you know that you have that World Champs. You know you're a year out from the Olympics. Where were you mentally heading into that season, again, after accomplishing all that you had, everything you can basically accomplish in a single event?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was actually a really interesting World Championships and one I learnt a lot from, purely because of that, because I did everything I wanted to do in the sport in a very, very short space of time. And for me, that was an interesting, to continue that motivation, continue that belief in yourself to keep pushing. And I think one of the people I spoke to a lot about was with Adam and Mel Marshall as well. We spoke about this thing of when you become the 1%, and that might be an Olympic gold, you become part of not a club but a small group of people, and the small group of people understand what it's like. And then when you break a world record and then Commonwealth champ and roll all those things into one, it's suddenly there's a 1% of a 1% understand kind of what has just transpired. So for me, that was a really interesting mental, challenge in layman's terms, I guess, or the stress that I went through. And I think going into that 2023 season, I didn't really know what to expect. I don't think I was at my best, to be fair. And I think the result I got out of the 2023 World Champs, although losing the world record, was actually for me, I was quite happy with where I was at, considering where I was at physically and mentally, to get that out of myself, given those circumstances and given the whirlwind that was 2022. And I was absolutely over the moon with that result.
Yeah. Just heading into those world champions. I mean, again, you put it in layman's terms, but you're dealing with this stress, this pressure of trying to motivate yourself after having accomplished so much. How did you get there? How did you get to the place where you were able to put up that performance at the 2023 Worlds that you were able to? What were the keys for you of being able to motivate yourself?
I think part of it was there was a little motivation, if I'm honest, but the other half of it is that you do continue to swim or continue to pursue swimming because you believe there is more in it. And ultimately, like, that's probably the conclusion I came to and why I'm still swimming today. Like, if I didn't think there was more in the 200 breast for me, then I wouldn't. Like, if I believed I swam my perfect race, then I guess that would be the day I retire. But we haven't quite got there yet, and I think there's definitely more in it. And I continue to push that, and I saw glimpses of it in the season, and saw glimpses of like where I could be at and what's possible, and stringing those sessions together is what this season's about. But that's definitely what I took and continued to motivate me, was like those small little windows where you're like, oh, like it is still there. Oh, it's still like possible to continue to build that 200 breast. And then I think, as well as that, we tried a few different things at the end of last year. But we'll probably get into that as well.
Let's now's as good a time as any. What new what are those new things? What did that look like for you?
I mean, everyone knows that I've definitely trained more back end speed my whole life. Like, that's no secret the way I race. And definitely continue to train like that, but we've definitely more contrasted the training as well. Like, as I've gotten older, I can definitely lean on some of that aerobic base that I've still got and be able to tap into that. Definitely took a bit of what I saw what Nick Fink was doing as well, like that contrast of like swimming distance with the freestylers and contrasting with, and definitely like probably chase that a little bit more. And like that was, I think we didn't quite get it right at the beginning of last year, but at the end of last year, we definitely started to see a shift in that momentum, whether because of that strength block we did, got a new gym coach, and then we kind of if I'm honest, like he was part of the missing link of like gapping all the support staff and the support team around me together, um, pulling that S&C, the physiology, and then pulling Vince in and getting an understanding of like, we've almost expended this side of the swimming, like that back end speed. Like, yes, we can definitely get faster in it, but at what cost? And how much more time and energy do we have to actually spend on getting that last 10%? Whereas we have this whole other untapped system where we can start to play with, like, it's at 10% capacity. Can we get it up to 25? Like, we acknowledge that, we're not going to get it to, we're not going to go full other end of the spectrum of absolute anaerobic animal. We're gonna we're gonna leave it as maintaining that strength whilst building some other tools to the toolbox, if you want.
Yeah. And so how did you feel like that played out heading in that 2023 World Championship run, where you were first out of prelims 208.9, first out of semis 207.2, and
Mm,
then ultimately silver behind Qin Haiyang 206.4.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, the the first and second one, sorry, the heat and semi felt unreal, like, especially the heat, and, like, I think that came with the territory of being kind of the guy to beat and, like, having been in control of that race on. And I think for me, like, took a lot of confidence from the heat, especially, like, I enjoyed the way that race kinda happened and felt really in control. In the semi, kind of, like, probably wanted it a little bit much, and same in that final, like, I think I left my run a little bit too late and didn't really, uh, like, my weaknesses absolutely got exploited. Let's be honest, like, that's what happened. Um, and, like, it showed where the weakness was, and I think kind of opened the eyes of my coach as well to say, "Oh, like, that's something we really need to do." Um, and since then has been really receptive of that, and like had a really good team around us to be able to do that. Because it's like, I'll be honest, like, he's 70 in his 70s, so like he's not comfortable doing it. Like, he's like grown up with, Bill Sweetenham style stuff of like, and Kieran Perkins based stuff, and where it's just like, it's do the miles, it's meat and potatoes training, and it will accumulate over time and you'll get better over time. Whereas we're seeing stuff like Cam where it's like ultra specific to the event and purely, well, he's gone like he's purely anaerobic and able to lean on the base he's already got a little bit to maintain that over a week. And on top of that, like doing really race specific weighted stuff and etc. And he's like another interesting person that's like the opposite end of the spectrum, I guess, of like the new school of swimming, if you want. So I guess we've kind of landed somewhere in between that. And like I'll acknowledge like he's been, it's been great to be able to do that with him. And because like I know he's not comfortable doing that. Like it's completely out of his comfort zone. And like it's not in my comfort zone either. Like I enjoy the work. So doing stuff that's like less is more is hard for my brain to be like, okay, can I just do like 2050s? Be like, no, you can only do 4, but they have to be all good. Like it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. We don't get that a whole lot of of someone resisting less, right? Usually it's the other way around, but it makes sense, right? Because I, in from your perspective, it's like I just want to do the work, and like then if I do it, then it's in the bank and I'm good. But
Mm,
yeah, like you said, it's a whole different philosophy. And I think it seems like we're seeing a lot of people have a combination of those
mm.
two schools of thought, which I really enjoy. I like, I think there's good things from the old school mentality, and I think there's a lot of good things coming out from the new school. And I think, combining forces seems like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about Qin Haiyang because going into the tuner breast at World Champs, I thought he was not going to be a factor. I thought he would like 50-100 guy. He had like made the total conversion. I thought he was Adam Peatying it, right? And so then he's like, oh, he's in the final. I was like, he's not going to do anything. Is that
Mm.
what you were thinking too?
I think everyone was in that same boat. And I think like after that first 100, I think everyone also then thought, oh, this is like that was his shot.
Yeah.
Like similar to what, Arno did in Tokyo, like went for
Mhm.
it in that first 100 and just like, you know, like hurt coming home. And I was like, that's what's probably going to happen. Like when I was in that race, I was like, he's going to die. And then he didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. um, yeah, like it was definitely like interesting to go into that race and then come out of that and be like, what the just happened? Like, um, and like it was really cool to see someone like that have that success and like show that it is still possible to do all three. Um, but yeah, like I think he made a lot of people like hungrier to beat him too at the same time. For sure. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so give me your initial reaction after that race of obviously not only just, you know, not being able to get your hand on the wall first, but seeing him smash your world record, and then what are your thoughts now, having reflected for 6 to 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was probably like pretty just stoked with my result, considering probably not the work I'd done, but the preparation I'd had. And then I think after the bit of reflection, I think I was like, it gave me a bit more hunger at the end of last year. Like I was like, fuck yeah, like let's do this. Like I know I can go faster. Like I know that there's more in it. And then doing that different style of or contrasted training was really like, okay, this is the missing link. Like this is the direction I like. It started to feel right again. Um, yeah, like that's probably what I've reflected on because I guess like for me personally, like I'm a big person of like I can only control what I can control. And obviously, like I've seen his race plan. I've seen like not his race plan, but like you know looked at that race and looked at how he split it and stuff. And like it's very consistent with almost old school turner breast, but like to a different level. Like a very different level to like but the consistency of splitting is similar um, to like 2008 2009 kind of turner breaststroke work. But shifted the paradigm a little bit. So I guess for me, like understanding that and understanding how I have to shift as well to be able to be competitive, like still continuing that back end, but how do I be competitive through that front end speed?
Mhm. Does does that include the 100, or is that really, when you say front end speed, are you thinking first 100 or first 50?
Both.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely both. Like, and I think I know, and I've known for a few years that like I have to be, 59 low, 58 high to get competitive, like to be really, really competitive in the two. Because like at the moment, when I went 206 for the first time, I was 59.9 swimmer,
Mhm.
and I was swimming, and I was going out in 61.
Mhm.
So like I was pushing that front end to the absolute limit, or my limit at that point in
Mhm.
time. And like I haven't really shifted the 100 that much, like 59.5 at Com Games.
Mhm.
Like it's not like if I'm blunt, it's not good enough anymore. Like we have guys going 57s. It's so I have to improve that 100 in terms of that 100 race, and then to help that 200, because we're thinking about all in the frame of the 200, but that 100 is how you do it.
Mhm.
As simple as that. And that first 50 is part of that. I still probably subscribe to more the Chukov method of the 200 breast, in that like distance per stroke, length off that first 50, and being as efficient as possible. But you still have to be fast. You still have to be 28s lows in that first 50 really to be competitive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. It's uh it's going to take some speed, and then obviously, it comes down to that last 50, but if you're so far ahead and you can maintain, then that's not really a problem, I guess. uh so so I guess coming off of world champs, what did the fall look like for you? Did you take a break? Did you get right back into it? Was the motivation easier to find for you? Was it did where were you mentally and physically, just coming off of world champs into those next few months?
Yeah, off world champs, like I had a couple of weeks off. I had to have my wisdom teeth out because I got infamps, um, which I'd been like, dreading that it was gonna happen. If it was gonna happen, it was gonna happen at a meet, which is always the way. Um, and then so I had all them out. So I had I had 2 good weeks of like gym work and a bit of anaerobic stuff to begin with in the early season, and then had a week off after surgery, and then kind of went from there. Like we really built quite quickly, and then when the half of our group was at World Cups end of last year, like we really hit training very, very hard. Like we were hitting 65, 70K weeks for 3 weeks, and it was like, but we were also maintaining really high quality, and I was like, this is awesome. Like I'm really excited to race. So like we didn't have that much time after Worlds, I guess, in terms of out of the water, but we had time where we weren't focused on the pool. We were focused on dry land. We were focused on, doing some anaerobic work out of the pool and trying some different bits and pieces and making sure everything was good, physically, mentally, and we had a plan going forward. So we did take that time, I guess, to understand where we're at and what the next steps were. But like in terms of time training off wise, like it was quite limited.
Mhm. And then sorry, did you go to World Cups or no?
No, no. We had a half our group go to World Cups, and then the other half stay back at home, and so there's 4 of us back at home, and yeah, it was kind of, as our coach said, you've got to catch up, and then we kind of caught up and overtook the group that went to World Cups, and they got back, and they're like, oh my god, you guys are so fit, and we're not. And we're like, yeah, we've gone through hell for the last 3 weeks, but sure, like.
That's a funny progression.
Yeah.
Why did you opt for not training over competition at that point?
I mean, we've raced, like as you said before, like we had back-to-back world championships. We had Com Games at the end of last, like after World Champs 2022. So like it's been a big like racing year, or couple of years. Like I was only talking to Rowan Taylor yesterday, being like, like I was like, "Oh, you go to Doha soon?" He's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh, but you feel like you've been on the road for the last like 3 years?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do, and I can't wait for like after Paris just to decompress for a little while." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think all the athletes are feeling the same." So I mean, yeah, like that's ultimately like what the decision came down to have been like, well, what's more valuable for me at that point in time? And for me at that point in time was or is still now, you know, is that training volume and that training capacity because I we don't have that long before Paris, like really, and before Paris trials.
And that was my next question is just, is it a similar reasoning that why you opted for not going to Doha in these February World
Mm.
Championships?
Yeah, obviously it was like pretty tempting to go and race, especially because I think there'll be quite a few European guys there swimming decent breaststroke. Um, and that's like it would create a good atmosphere, I think, and a good amount of competition. But I think for us, like it's a lot further to travel. We're going to the States in March for Flagstaff, so like,
Hmm.
and then we have like we have our nationals in April, and then we have a Sydney meet in May, and then we're at trials in June, and then we're 5 days later we fly to um, Europe. So like there's like it just clutters the season, I guess. Which it doesn't. It's when I say it all like that, it's like it sounds cluttered, but um, yeah, like I mean, it's one thing per month at the moment, and like adding something extra in Feb is like, especially before a trip Flagstaff, I just don't know whether it's the best. Like probably more mentally than physically. Like stability showed that like as much as people hated that COVID period, like if you had access to a pool and had access to training, like you probably had some of the best training of your life. Like realistically, it was very stable. Like you knew, okay, we're training at this time. That was it. Especially here in Australia, like we were training very specific times because we weren't allowed in the pool as much as we wanted to be, and that gave us a lot of stability because we knew we weren't traveling, we knew we weren't doing this, so it became very mundane. And I think that's something we've tried to bring in as well. Like, how do we keep it as simple as possible?
No, it's smart. I mean, especially in an Olympic year, right? You want to get out the unnecessary things, and yeah,
Mm,
the pandemic certainly taught us some lessons in that regard of of slowing down. And I mean, I remember quite a few points, kind of like having being stressed or being worried about getting back into normal life because I knew
yeah.
that things would get hectic again. So totally makes sense.
And
And
now we've gone to like the other end of the spectrum where we're like, oh, we just got to do everything like all at once. And you're like, and like, I don't know. I was listening to something the other day, and it was like they were talking about AI and artificial intelligence, and being like, oh, 3 months ago that wasn't possible. And then I was just like, in that context, like you just even that sentence being like, oh, 3 months ago that wasn't possible, but like the world has moved in 3 years so far and so fast in general. I think like we need to remember almost what COVID times were like, where we're like, no, like it's all good, like take it slow, like a little bit.
yeah, I wish I wish we could. It's sometimes it doesn't feel possible, but some days it does. And especially with those February World Champs, which are an effect of the pandemic, right? That it's been interesting to hear athletes' perspectives on why they're going, why they're not going. Like it doesn't seem like there's a right or wrong, but just everyone's kind of making their own decision and what's right for them. And I'm excited to see the competition, but obviously for the athletes not going, it's like, yeah, it makes total sense. Um,
Mm,
you
nah, I respect that too. Like, yeah, I think it's up to the individual. As simple as that. Like, especially this year, like everyone's making selfish choices, whether that's right or wrong. But that's ultimately like this is the year you're allowed to make selfish choices. I think, like, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have a couple scheduling questions. You're coming to the United States for camp in Flagstaff. Have you been to Flagstaff before?
yeah. This will be my fourth or fifth time. Fourth, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, last year we went in Feb.
Mhm.
So we're almost there this time last year. We were very close to getting on a plane, and like I think we got in on, I think it was Super Bowl Sunday, and it was like, yeah, yeah.
Wasn't it
So
in
I think,
Phoenix last year?
yeah, we flew into Phoenix. There was the Waste Management Open and the Super Bowl were on the same weekend like in and around Phoenix. But yeah, like it was like a ghost town at the airport because everyone was either at the golf or at the Super Bowl already, and we were just like, oh, this is not bad. Like walking through security and stuff. But yeah, like so that's when we landed last year, and it was hopefully a lot colder last year than it is going to be this year because last year we got snowed out twice and we weren't able to get to training, which was
Oh wow.
like they're like, oh, it doesn't snow in Feb/March, and we're like, okay. Yeah.
Oh wow. So how long is that training camp for you all, and how big is your squad?
Yeah, so I think it's just our group plus a couple of open water swimmers from Australia.
Hmm.
So that's Vince's group. So, it's like Kate Campbell, who hasn't been before, Mitch Larkin, who hasn't been before, Lizzie Deckers, Ella Ramsey, another young breaststroker, Bailey Lello, and myself, and then two coaches and a physio and a sports scientist. So I think there's 10 or 11 of us. And like quite a small group, really, not a large group compared to some of the groups that roll through there. And I think we're there for 3 weeks total, I believe. I have to look at some dates, but yeah, I know we leave like first weekend of March and come back last weekend ish / land in April. But yeah, like it's awesome place. I love it there, and I like training there and the benefit you get off it. Yeah, I'm excited to go again.
Nice. Is there anywhere you can train at altitude in Australia?
Yeah, there's Threadbow, which is I think 1,200 meters. So nothing on like less than half the height of Flagstaff.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I think Flagstaff the pool's at 7,000 feet, which is like
that sounds right.
2.8, I think.
Okay.
2.8.
Yeah.
K up.
That
Yeah.
that
It feels a lot different.
I bet. Yeah. I bet. Well, that's cool. That's I hope the training trip goes well. And then you're
Mm.
competing this coming weekend. It's South Aussie
Yeah.
states. So we reported this. Are you only entered in the 200 breast?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
Tell me about that. Yeah.
so because we're able to train on the weekend because the 2 rests is on Sunday, so we're able to train and then still go down. So I'm not expecting much, but I'm just keen to race, and then we're doing some training down there, like 2 days worth of training and skill act off the back of that. Just using their system down there and their pool, and just to give us a different stimulus as well. So there's 3 of us from our group going. And yeah, it's exciting, I guess, like to dip my toe in that 200 breast again for 2024.
How far of a travel is that for you?
Be like you flying to California, so like 2 hours. If
Oh,
not.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. When was the last time you raced? I like swam the 200 breast in a meet.
Worlds.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm.
So this is wow, I'm speechless. That's a long time.
Yeah, so I haven't raced it since Worlds. Like we had planned on going to Japan and Queensland States. That was November, December. But due to a couple of bits and pieces, I wasn't able to go to Japan. I really, really wanted to. I wanted to race at the Olympic pool again. Probably, I may never have the opportunity ever again to race that pool. Like I don't know when the next trip will be planned for that, because after Paris, like, we start looking to race more in America, because like we've got to get used to the travel into LA and
Oh,
those kind of things. And
yeah. All
so yeah,
right.
I guess I guess yeah, like, so for me it was like a bittersweet not being able to go to that, but and like, so there had been a few planned, but we had to pull out right at the last minute. So yeah.
Wow. How do you feel about that? You got butterflies? You-
I mean, I'm more nervous, like, it sounds strange, but like that 200 breast pain of like, you never get used to it. Like, you get used to it over a season, but like that first couple of the season, you get nervous because you know it's gonna hurt. Like, you don't get nervous because you don't know. Like, I'll probably be a bit nervous because I don't know how the outcome of it. As I progress through the season, I kind of know where it's gonna be at, like how I'm feeling, how I'm training, and those kind of things. But at the moment, like, it's the beginning of a new year. Like, we've been back in the water 4 weeks now. Um, like, we're doing pace work, and the pace is like there, but it's not as consistent as I would like, I'd say. Um, and like, I'm excited to race in that sense, but I guess I'll be probably more nervous for that side of it, being like, oh, like, it's gonna hurt. I don't know how it's gonna go, like that kind of side of it. But it's a pool I'm familiar with too, so it's also like good. So
Mhm. Wow. Well, good good luck. I hope it goes well. I can't believe it's been that long since you competed. Whew.
yeah, and yeah, the last time I raced in that pool, here's another one for you. Then the last time I raced in that pool was 205 night.
Wow.
Mm,
What do you think you're gonna go this time?
not that fast. I wish I was that quick at this time of the season. Be quite a good season to look forward to if it was like that. But I don't know. Like, I don't want to put a time on it, because I'm like, I don't want to put a limit on it either.
Mhm.
But I'm just excited to put a good process of stroke count and rate together, and kind of worry about the time afterwards.
So first race of the season. Like you said, stroke count and
Mm,
stroke rate.
yeah.
What does that look like? Like, can you take me through the race plan of like number of strokes per 50 and or when you want to change your rate throughout the race? Because I'm familiar with stroke counts, but as an athlete, I never really used tempo. I was not a good
Mm.
athlete, but I never used tempo. So I find it very interesting of like, okay, where do you implement this throughout a race?
Yeah, I more think of each lap as like almost like a gear change. So that first lap is probably like a bit counter to what you'd think, but the same vein of like, it's not about trying to gain speed in that first 50. It's pure trying to minimize the speed loss from the start. So for me,
Mhm.
like, we've kind of worked out that rate is probably around 34, 35, and that rate equals about 13, 14 strokes typically.
Mhm.
And then the next lap will be around that 16 stroke count, and will be, similar rate, but building on that second 25. So the first 25 might be establishing that stroke again off that turn, and then building into that 36, 37 rate, and so on. And it follows that similar pattern of like almost two 50s per stroke, two stroke rates per 50. And the back 25 of each 50 is trying to be a little bit more on that stroke rate, purely because as I've said before, like, trying to not lose that speed. As simple as that. Like, for me, that's probably what I'm thinking about. And then that last 50, it's about everything I got, and typically it's around that 100 back end rate, which is typically like, 46 to 49
What does that number mean? 40, like you're saying 46 to 49, like what does that indicate?
strokes per minute. Yeah,
Okay.
so strokes per minute. Yeah. So if you were put in an endless pool or a flow pool, like, you would be taking 46 strokes. So, like, for example, like, I think Adam's world record is around 54 going out, and then 56 coming back. So like, it's a and he's kind of changed breaststroke in that sense, like, of the tempo
Mhm.
is very different. And like, I think Chukov's is like 26 in his first lap. And like to give you context, like the stroke rates on the watches, all the watches on the coaches have like only goes to I think 16 or 15. Like, so if you're below that, like it just says error. And like I'm like, man, he's pushing it. Like he's not that far from like, getting to that bottom limit.
Yeah. That's great. Here I think they do it per second.
Mhm.
So like that's when coaches call out stroke rates, if like people are warming up or in practice or whatever, they'll say like 0.8 or 1.0 or
Yeah. Which kind of probably makes more sense because you can like kind of count that a little bit better like yourself than like, oh, that's been a minute maybe and I've gone 37, but I've also like built it through that minute. So like, I don't know.
right. Yeah. And so it's like, they'll like, if a coach is measuring stroke rate here, they'll like get it every stroke cycle. So then they can be like, okay, you were like 0.7 from here and then like 0.8 here, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they're like 1.1 at the beginning. And
Yeah.
It's just,
That makes sense.
again, I appreciate the differences and
The nuances of swimming, eh?
seriously, that's great. Okay. So I think we're far enough into the podcast. We've covered a lot of interesting swimming stuff. Maybe we'll circle back around, but I'm here mostly to talk to you about coffee, because last time we spoke, we had it was like one of the most delightful conversations I've had on the SwimSwam podcast, because we talked about coffee. So give me the update on your coffee situation. What and how have you been brewing as of late?
That's like a good one because like I treated myself before World Champs last year to a nice espresso machine.
Mhm.
I bought myself a La Morozoko, which was like my dream machine for a long time, and I was just like, you know what, like they had a good sale, and I was like, oh fuck it, like let's do it. I'll have it for life. I haven't looked back. Like, I love it so much. So I drink a lot more espresso long blacks
Mhm.
now. But when I'm on the road, it's still filter. But probably what you're more intrigued by is that I'm now roasting. My partner and I, we're roasting coffee
Yeah, that's
together,
what I'm
which has
talking
been really
about.
fun. So yeah, we bought a roaster at the end of 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah, end of 2022, and just like probably once or twice a week, we'll throw like some beans through it. Only to family and friends at the moment, but hopefully we'll build a bit of a brand up into this year and have something going by the end of this year. Would be pretty cool. But yeah, like mostly filter coffee. I've started to dip my toe into like different waters as well, which is like a whole other world inside coffee. Like, um, but like I think I'm ready. Like I've explored a lot of filter stuff and like different filter papers, different water temperatures, grind size, all that stuff. But kind of the last pillar, if you want, in coffee for me to like explore is water. And it's one I've been like scared to as well because it's like it's a rabbit hole like that is is deep. And like one of my friends that like he's the Aussie coffee water guru, I would say. He spent like the last 6 years like purely experimenting with coffee and water, like the interaction basically, which is wild when you think about it. Like he would be an Olympic gold medalist of water and coffee. Like that's him. So yeah, like that's probably where I'm at the moment with coffee. Like at the moment, I'm drinking a lychee fermented coffee. So they use lychees and they use the yeast. So the yeast, they'll pre-ferment a yeast or inoculate a yeast with lychee and then remove the fruit. So remove the lychee and then basically put the coffee cherry, so a red looking cherry that has the coffee beans in it, and ferment that with that yeast. And it gives this like, I guess, lychee flavored coffee. So it's like a warmed up iced tea that tastes like lychee and coffee mixed together. And I have like a peach one, a passion fruit one, and one that I'm roasting at the moment is called a My Pop Culture, which is tastes like a fruit punch meets coffee. Like it's awesome. Like it's really fun.
Do you like the lychee coffee flavor?
Yeah, I mean, I like the lychee flavor. It's definitely different, definitely specialty, and definitely like unique. Like when you give it to people to try, they're like, coffee shouldn't taste like that. They're so amazed, and like that's probably the part of coffee I enjoy the most. Like sharing coffees with other people and sharing coffee over conversations and just being the conversation or being the centerpiece of that conversation. Being like, try this, like with the same coffee processed 3 different ways and be like, oh, like I didn't realize it can taste like, yeah. We're seeing coffee go towards wine, I guess, wine and whiskey kind of realm of being like, this is the nuance it can have. Which is, yeah, I really enjoying it at the moment.
I feel like you're way ahead of probably anyone who I know, but my favorite coffee roaster in Austin, where I live, they used to do this thing pre-pandemic where they'd have like 7 different coffees you could try, but they would, as you were mentioning, they would take one coffee and brew it in 3 different methods so you could taste the difference. And that was like the first time I went in there, I was like, this is amazing. Like it
Yeah.
really, really got me.
Yeah. There's a few good roasters. Black and White coffee roasters in America. Awesome. So Roaster Cat. She has this really cool Instagram that like is really user friendly to understand like this is like why that coffee tastes that way. And like how they roast it as well is like a whole other world of coffee. So you kind of have like the brewer's side of coffee if you want. So like I guess if you want to relate it back to swimming, it's like that's the swimmers, and then you have like the roasters, which is almost like the coach, and then you have like the producers, which is like who's funding it on the bottom, or like the forefathers of swimming. Like so, it's like it's really interesting to learn about the whole process, and it's something I enjoy. And like I love going to cuppings as well. That's really cool, where you have like new coffees, new producers, and they're like just like basically like a bowl of coffee, and you're just like drinking out of it and then trying it all different, not ways, but different productions. So yeah, it might be a anaerobic ferment, or it might be a natural ferment. So the way the fruit off the cherry, so the fruit away from the seed, or the fruit away from the coffee bean.
So going to a cupping, how do you function by like trying all of this different coffee? Like, don't you get like over caffeinated like 30 minutes in?
I mean, yes and no, because I think you're drinking like maybe 25 mils, if that, of each coffee, and you might try like 7 coffees. So you're really only drinking one full standard filter coffee.
Yeah.
But the weirdest one I've been to is like the water guy I was talking about. Him and one of his closest friends, Carlos. So Simon and Carlos, they competed in 2021 at the World Brewers Cup, and they got 3rd in the world. So for this like coffee,
Pretty
so
good.
that like yeah, really good coffee, like unbelievable, like nothing I've ever tasted before. But I went with a friend to their, like they called it the King's Tour, and they did it, and they basically showed how they got to the final recipe, the final brew, and like it started at 7:30 at night, and like we had like by 8 o'clock we'd had 4 coffees, and then like by 8, it was like 6. Like oh my god. So that's one of the weirdest ones into where I've been like, oh, like it was great, it was really cool to go see, but like it's now 9 o'clock at night and I'm just like laying here in bed buzzing, like but yeah, it was awesome.
That's so great. I went to I've been to a couple coffee festivals here. Like Austin has one, and my brother lives in New Mexico, and there's one there. But like, we don't Americans don't get small sizes. Like they're like, oh, here, try our coffee, and here's a 12-ounce cup of our coffee,
Oh my
and
God.
everyone's doing that, and it's just like, I want like 2 sips. It's like I want to
Yeah.
try really good coffee, and I want to like sample it. I don't want, yeah, like we don't get small. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, supersized or not, right?
exactly.
Especially in Texas, right?
Everything is bigger in Texas. That's a fact. But all right. Well, this absolutely delivered. Thank you so much for indulging me. Okay, I do want to hear about the roasting.
Yeah.
So you buy the green beans, right?
Mhm.
You're like the raw coffee beans, and then how have you? Tell me about the learning curve of roasting coffee, because I'm pretty sure it's fairly complicated.
Yeah, it is definitely complicated, and each coffee, I guess, like a steak or like anything you're cooking, I guess, requires like slightly different, has its own nuance, I guess. And my partner and I, Leah, her and I did a roasting course with a guy here in Brizzy, Ray at the Coffee Commune, which was really cool. We did like a full day where he just like, 9 a.m. till about 4:30, 5 o'clock. We were just like doing roasting theory, trying coffees, and then roasting, and then trying coffees, and then like, you know, and then we bought a roaster, and then like we've had a fair few fuck ups. Like we've both nearly lit the roaster on fire a couple of times. Like you just like let the coffee go, and then it like you like stop watching it for like a split second, and then it's like black, and you're like, oh cool, no worries. Like, but it's only a 300-gram roaster, so we only really do 200-gram batches at the moment. So not really like anything substantial in that sense, but yeah, like it is a big learning curve. It makes you realize you know, like, yeah, there's a lot more to it. But yeah, like I could talk about this all day. Like I could talk about, you know, you could do a natural coffee and it's like you're trying to aim for 196 to 203 Celsius, and you're trying to be like a decreasing rate of rise of temperature. So that's
Mhm.
what you're aiming for the whole time. And you're trying to create, by doing like, you create that environment by reducing heat slowly and increasing fan speed, or one or the other, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes not. And then most of the time with filter coffee, especially natural and honey processed or washed coffees, you're doing a lot more towards like 10% development ratio. So you get a ratio, like a computer works it out. You can work it out on paper, but you have to be very quick because it's happening all like simultaneously. But you're like looking for a development ratio around that, of a green phase, a drying phase. So when the coffee goes from green to yellow, and then after it cracks the first time, so there's like an explosion of energy, like popcorn. Sounds like
Mhm.
popcorn in the roaster, and that's when it starts to smell really good. And then that last spot is the development ratio, and that's where you kind of like looking for a percentage, based on that coffee. So it might be anywhere from 10% to 15%. It's probably more towards like espresso machines. And then like some of the coffees I was talking about before, like the infused coffees, like they're so highly processed, like you have to break all the rules and go down to 5%. And like it's you're like, oh, okay. So like I've learnt all these rules and now you're telling me it's the opposite. Cool, cool. No worries. Like but yeah, like it's just a whole other world that I'm thoroughly enjoying exploring in the spare time and giving me something else to like look at.
It's always I think athletes, have a tendency to hyperfixate on things. And
Yep.
so it's always enjoyable for me to talk about other things aside from swimming with athletes, because if they're really into it, then they know their stuff. And I end up learning a lot. So it's great.
Yeah, yeah, we're all hyper
But
fixators for sure. Like, yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that, and I've learnt to be like, okay, do you have time for a new hyperfixation? Because like, end of 2022, it was like golf. And I was like hyperfixated on that. And I'm like, I still want to go play golf, but I'm also like, you don't have that much time to go out for 4 hours, like, and hit the ball. But at the moment, like, yeah, it is coffee and coffee roasting at the moment.
Excellent. Well, I love that hobby. I can't say the same for golf, but thank you for indulging my coffee fixation. I'm gonna end this circling back to swimming.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this a little off camera, but the clock strikes midnight on December 31, and it's like, all right, it's the Olympic year. Like we are fully in 2024. You obviously done an Olympic lead up before. You know what it's like. You know what an Olympic Games is like. Obviously, Tokyo is a little different given the pandemic, but you've been there, you've done it. How are you feeling now, knowing that it's like, all right, we got 6 months. It is 2024, and Paris is right around the corner.
Yeah, I think it's more exciting. Like, last year, I described it to a coach last year when they were asking about it. Like, last year is almost like you're laying the foundation, and this year is about putting that foundation to work and putting the polish on. And for me, that's probably what gets really exciting. Like, it's like, last year is exciting in the sense that you're like, oh, this is the beginning of the Olympic mountain, if you want, or the start. This is base camp 1, World's 2023, and now we're probably at base camp 3, like, of Everest. We're getting really close to that, and you can start to see the end, or the light of that. And for me, that's really exciting, and like gives that extra piece of motivation. And I know probably around that Flagstaff time again, there'll be that last, really like that big push again, and the last bit of excitement kind of kick in. And yeah, like as I said to you before, it's a bit like jumping on a moving train. Like when you get back, it's like you're jumping and like running next to the train. You're like, okay, like, I've got to get on. And that's, you've kind of passed that phase probably by now, but it's definitely that exciting period where you're really building and you're trying to do things you've never done before, and you have that like in the back of your mind of like, this is the Olympic year, this is like where it's at, and this is the exciting time.
I think that's a great stopping point. Zac, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It was great to talk to you again, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great. It's been awesome.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.